Upon hearing this, the father sobbed deeply at the unexpected turn of events. He never expected his daughter to react like this. "Do you even know what you're saying, my child? I'll be straightforward. Even if he saved your life, you two have already slept together. Why are you avoiding the topic of marriage and considering joining a cult? Your father is a woman living in the martial world. You don't want to marry just because you've slept with someone. Moreover, he already has a betrothed. What's the point of discussing marriage? You are the daughter of Wang Xin. You have no inferiority. If you feel ashamed of being his concubine, then let me tell you something." Du Huyan then angrily retorted, causing her father to fall silent. When his usually quiet daughter started arguing, it took him aback. If father has to marry just because he slept with someone, then how about everyone else? Everyone will try to marry someone they like. What I said is reasonable and logical. You can't say women are like that. We need to understand each other before considering marriage. Finally, Du Huyan stated that the whole family should join the demon cult. Wasn't father's promise to protect her and her siblings because of their mother? Wang Qin avoided factions for his children's sake, and he had to reveal himself when he thought his daughter was abducted. But he never revealed his identity to anyone. This made Du Huyan worry about her father's power and reputation being used up just for them. Despite hearing her son's words, Wang Qin felt his heart warm. He realized how foolish it was to force marriage just because his daughter had slept with Thien Pham. It was better now for Du Huyan to join the cult and work to repay the debt of saving her life. Wang Qin cleared his throat but smiled. "If you've decided, then I have no choice. If you have no intention with the sect leader, then so be it." Then suddenly, her next words made him furrow his brows again. "You're not sure about that. Perhaps if you meet a few more times, you'll like him." After saying this, Du Huyan blushed and quickly turned away. Indeed, she was the main character. Without even starting, Thien Pham was about to have another beautiful woman, not inferior to Van Q, to attend to. Until now, Wang Qin didn't know what to say anymore. After all, he was a man. He couldn't fully understand the thoughts and feelings of women. Meanwhile, at the third elder guest house in the back, Thien Pham was conversing with the second elder Yen Mako. She was reporting the situation after gathering all the medicinal materials listed by Madame Cam before arriving at the Lam Ho Nam clan's village. Pham had discussed the patient's symptoms with Cam Lo too, but hadn't informed her about the patient's noble status. Right after hearing about it, the divine healer confirmed that the former sect leader was injured in the heart. Thien Pham had a list of medicinal herbs kept in the sect. While searching for the viper's grass, he realized what was missing, and Yen Mako went to find the missing herbs. Cam Lo Tu's presence didn't change anything, as it all started with a hand-to-hand fight with Wang Qin, which no one could have predicted. The second elder also bowed when she heard the news that the sect leader won against the great martial arts master. Unlike the former, who was affected by the blood fiend divine skill, it was a fair fight, and both had prepared the best for it. This trip had taken quite a while as Thien Pham took many givers. Now was the time for him to return to discuss the most important matters. Now it was about taking the divine healer along. The conversation was abruptly interrupted by a knock on the door, requesting an audience from the Master of Da. Pham allowed entry, and a young man in black followed the Master of Da. This person was a special agent of a secret operations group led by the Grand Elder. If he personally delivered the secret letter, it meant an urgent matter was happening. The sect leader had to ask directly about this young man's identity. The Grand Elder of the Dark Sect had urgently ordered the Divine to meet him, not sending anyone from the Demon Sect. It seemed like a significant matter. Switching to Morse code usually indicates an official report unless it's about unexpected guests heading towards the 10,000 peaks. After hearing the subordinate's transmission, Thien Pham frowned and requested everyone to return immediately. Upon receiving this information, the faithful followers prepared to depart, planning to hold a grand funeral for the divine healer's granddaughter after arriving at the village as they promised. So a horse-drawn carriage was brought to carry the coffin containing the body of Cam Mai Duong. The coffin was loaded onto the carriage with Cam Lu Tu sitting next to it, holding the child, and everything was in order. It was time to depart. Van Q heard about this situation from the words of his subordinates, so he immediately became curious why the Celestial Sect Master did not follow the Tiger's orders. Therefore, Thien Pham, along with the second elder and fourth elder, went to meet Wang Qin Da Heap. She knew about it, and her eyes also showed sadness because she thought they might be negotiating about the wedding after Thien Pham had combined the yin and yang to treat a strange illness for Vuong Du Hoyen. Ho Duong Ho guessed somewhat the feelings of Vuong Du Hoyen, so she also had to ask Van Q quite a bit about it. She was sure about that matter, but she was no longer worried because she had long placed her trust in the male lead. She accepted sharing her man with another woman only because it was greatly beneficial to Vuong Chin De Heap. Vuong Chin might mention marriage because of this incident, as Du Hoyen was the only one Van Q allowed. But they needed to leave immediately now that the plan had changed. However, something unexpected happened that shocked Hoa and Yen Mak Ho to the point of speechlessness. All three generations of the Vuong family knelt down and begged to join the sect. This was an unbelievable scene, so Thien Pham seemed quite surprised. This was better than choosing marriage, but it still made him curious. He hoped the sect master would not refuse this request. Please allow us to join the sect to repay the favor of saving our precious Du Hoyen, Hoa said joyfully. Vuong Chin might ask the sect master about marrying his daughter, so he would certainly stand by him, but they voluntarily requested to join the sect. This was a good thing for Thien Pham. He was looking at Du Hoyen and thinking that it must be her wish as her eyes met. Du Hoyen blushed and turned away, feeling ashamed when she saw the man she had slept with. This reaction shows that she also had some feelings. The matter only stopped when Thien Pham heard Vuong Chin's voice through the transmission. We'll talk about marriage in the future. It's better for both of you to understand each other before discussing marriage, he said. Of course, those words affirmed that the decision mainly came from Vuong Du Hoyen. She was very beautiful, but Thien Pham wasn't interested in other women besides Van Q, so he didn't feel any different until now. But now, the male lead became curious about Du Hoyen because she seemed different from other women, somewhat like Van Q. Vuong Chin noticed this expression and became satisfied after the sect master's answer, and a polite nod. How can we not welcome such unparalleled guests who want to join our sect? We thank you for joining, and please help our sect, he said, his eyes shining with that decision. Vuong Chin immediately knelt down and officially proclaimed Thien Pham as the sect master. Both elders also approached and congratulated the sect master for recruiting such a prominent figure. Elder Yen understood that this was truly of great joy. It was enough to upset the balance between the righteous and evil factions, which had been balanced before. Everything then proceeded smoothly. Thien Pham and his subordinates returned to the sect without any danger. According to the spy's investigation, those heading to the celestial sect were predicted to arrive 2 days later. This was much faster than Thien Pham's group, as Duong Dan Hoa calculated. It would take at least 3 days for them to return to the sect. Thien Pham worried that he might not arrive in time after hearing the spy's information. Everyone felt somewhat suspicious when they saw the anxious sect master, so there was no need to hide it. Thien Pham, everyone. The celestial sect is about to have unexpected guests. 2 elders volunteered to accompany the sect master, but I declined their request to escort them and ensure the safety of Camp Envoy. After assigning tasks to each subordinate, the male lead quickly returned to the celestial sect. According to the situation there, the news had spread that the sect master of the celestial sect had been in seclusion for 2 days. Therefore, the urgency of the male lead is also necessary. However, the person he must confront may be a prominent figure in the martial arts world. Time passed, and 2 days later, in a mountain alley near the 10,000 Great Mountain, Pham increased his speed to the fullest as the target was only about miles away, which was no longer far. In the past 2 days, he had been running and flying incessantly until he finally approached his territory. Suddenly, the sounds echoed, causing him to halt and observe. He heard the sound of horse hooves and faint trembling on the ground. From a distance, a group of people gradually emerging, advancing towards the southern heavenly demon sect. At the forefront was a man on a high tree, overlooking a luxurious horse carriage with flags adorned with the mark of the royal court. Many guards were stationed in the area, indicating a procession of over 3,000 people. Thien Pham became curious because usually, officials rarely involved themselves with martial arts matters. Furthermore, these soldiers were undoubtedly martial arts practitioners, ranging from intermediate martial artists to grandmasters. A man at the front on horseback, wearing orange armor, stood out with his martial prowess distinctly different from the others. Thien Pham recognized that he had reached a higher realm in martial arts cultivation. Intrigued by such a formidable figure within the royal army, Thien Pham's enhanced vision allows him to discern their martial skills. Despite the imposing demeanor of a general on the battlefield, he appears more like an aristocrat than a mere soldier. Later, he observed the presence of a mysterious figure inside another unfamiliar horse carriage. Strangely, this person emitted no internal energy. Meanwhile, towards the northern gate of the sect, cultivators were busy preparing to welcome guests from the royal court, with silk-lined paths and various other preparations underway. On a higher vantage point, the elder steward appeared anxious, receiving no news from the sect leader. Perhaps he was gazing into the distance with relentless anticipation. Amidst this tension, a storm of tension loomed. This demo belongs to the Grand Master of the Demon Sect. Naturally, his public appearance indicates the unsettling state of affairs within the sect, especially in the absence of the sect leader. The elder steward dispatched spies to investigate the uninvited guests who were not too far away. If the sect leader was absent, not only would they be endangered, but also the disciples would learn the truth. Thien Pham, with his amplified senses, conversed with the elder steward, sensing something approaching at incredible speed. This indicates that the approaching individual surpasses even the Grand Master in cultivation. If this person was stronger than the Grand Master, they must be one of the top martial arts experts in the martial world. Sensing the overwhelming aura, the Grand Master warned the elder steward to be cautious. The sword of malice points to where he saw a figure, ensuring that someone was indeed spotted. The elder steward focused intently and discerned something unusual, indicating a powerful foe. A little more, and everything will be revealed about this mysterious figure. Both grew more anxious, realizing the potential danger to the sect. Consequently, the elder steward ordered the guards to be on alert. As the intruder was thwarted, the Grand Master signaled to stop, adding a curious gaze. Subsequently, the sword of malice conveyed that he recognized a familiar aura, that of the sect leader approaching at an alarming speed. This was Thien Pham's reason for his actions, to keep his absence from the sect unnoticed. The elder steward became worried as a vast expanse of land in front of the gate might expose the sect leader's identity. Despite traversing the forest, he would eventually reveal himself. However, amidst these thoughts, another unexpected event occurred at the edge of the southern forest. The protagonist leaped high onto a tree. Finally, at the empty plot of land, this event started both the elder steward and the Grand Master. They couldn't understand why their sect leader would leap so high. The warriors atop the walls were too preoccupied with welcoming the guests to notice anything. This was a technique of aerial flight, where one utilizes internal energy to move through the air. This technique was considered a masterful skill of Qigong, comparable to the sword-drawing technique that all martial artists coveted. Of course, the Grand Master recognized immediately that his sect leader had broken through a realm. This was something he had almost considered impossible. At this moment, the protagonist drew his white dragon saber and threw it into the air. The sharp saber flew straight towards the direction of the base, so Thien Pham aimed towards his realm's boundary, then soared upwards. Both the elder steward and the Grand Master were drenched in sweat as they witnessed the fisherman's saber's aerial technique. They were left speechless. Following that, Thien Pham shot through the fortress wall and entered the inner court. Obviously, his most trusted subordinates had many questions for their sect leader at this moment. However, it wasn't the time for idle curiosity. The Grand Master quickly followed where their leader had passed. The protagonist had truly become more formidable within just a month. Not only that, but he also possessed strength comparable to the top martial artists in the martial world. While contemplating these matters, they suddenly noticed the movements of their two subordinates below, Ma Lak Kiem and Manhwa, who quickly followed Thien Pham into the inner court. Understanding their intentions, the protagonist halted his actions and landed below to observe. He saw that the sect leader hadn't entered the inner court but remained nearby. Consequently, both the elder steward and the Grand Master rushed to Thien Pham's side. He stood in a secluded corner, visible to few, understanding that his subordinates would soon come to meet him. Immediately after seeing their sect leader, they knelt down to initiate the formal greeting ceremony. They didn't inquire about events in the Central Plains. Instead, Thien Pham focused on whether there had been any recent disturbances within the sect. Those within the sect couldn't possibly encounter any disturbances unless it was a divine decree. Thus, the sect leader's behavior was discourteous. Nevertheless, it was perhaps more prudent for him to proceed to welcome the uninvited guests. They quickly escorted the infam back to change into his official attire with the purpose of receiving the uninvited guests. All the remaining elders within the palace were now present. In reality, no one knew where the sect leader currently was, causing great anxiety. However, their perplexing thoughts were soon overshadowed as the protagonist stepped in, followed by his most loyal subordinates, including the Grand Master and both loyal guardians. At this moment, the protagonist's demeanor seemed as though he had never left the sect. As they saw the sect leader, the third elder and all the other elders immediately knelt down to pay their respects. The protagonist had affection for the granddaughter of the third elder, but currently he seemed reluctant to discuss any marriage matters. Regardless, they needed to address the uninvited guests who had arrived. Thank you all for managing the sect in my absence. I heard that the royal procession is approaching. Elders and soldiers, follow me to the north gate to greet them. Fortunately, the infam had returned just in time, as those within the royal court were preparing for various basic procedures. The sect's notable figures had gathered at the north gate, and the atmosphere grew tense as the sound of horse hooves approached. Everyone understood that they were about to face the southern heavenly demon sect. Hundreds of horses trampled the ground, causing everyone to fall silent. Soon after, the royal army emerged from the forest. As they closer, the soldiers formed neat rows, lining the entire route. In the middle of this formation, a luxurious horse-drawn carriage advanced, and the general that the protagonist had observed earlier slowly rode towards the southern heavenly demon sect's location. As per the Grand Master's assessment, it was evident that these martial officials had likely broken through to a higher realm. The general approached the main gate and then stopped. He displayed an arrogant gaze before announcing, "I am General Namchan, appointed by the Great Ming Empire. All members of the Southern Heavenly Demon Sect are hereby commanded to present themselves." This declaration leaves everyone within the sect astonished. Immediately afterwards, the elder steward transmitted a message to the sect leader to provide him with more information about the title Kamwai Imperial Guards. The Kamwai were the elite bodyguards of the royal family, much like the Eastern and Western Chambers, the Imperial Eunuchs, all of which were specialized organizations of the Great Ming Empire and were highly trusted by the emperor. These individuals commanded high-ranking officials of the empire. Of course, the protagonist didn't know who they were. However, both of them were famous figures in the martial world. Additionally, he was becoming increasingly curious about who was inside the horse carriage that required such high-level martial escorts. The other carriage had started to stop rolling, and it seemed like someone inside wanted to go out. The carriage door was finally opened, and a certain figure also appeared, his hand also carefully holding something. Then take the initiative to step down just like that immediately. All the generals and soldiers of the empire had to kneel down and pay their respects. The general saw all the civilians and no one took any action. He also became cold and learned, so he had to speak louder to remind everyone how rude it was to not quickly kneel down to receive the royal order. In fact, the purpose of that mysterious person coming here was to give God's decree. The emperor, and of course these people all worshipped the holy fire. In fact, they did not bow to the Ming dynasty at all. That general himself understood that these demonic cults would never kneel easily. However, he and I must also be very curious because I don't understand how the attitude right now could be so indifferent. He started to become angry. He was about to pull out his sword to kill a few people when a voice transmitted the message and stopped it. This is the person inside the carriage who stepped out. He is not tall but has a plump body and eyes that are not very bright. Perhaps this person's achievements are not in the imagination that the male lead had in mind. The person from the Damin Empire began to boldly declare that he was the Holy King Chu Tai Kim. "I am the one who received orders from His Majesty the Emperor of the Damin Empire, and came here to command you to gather." Before, the Holy King Chu Tai Kim appeared and said that the purpose of coming to the Ma then sect was to transmit the decree of the Emperor Damin. All the people in the sect who were chosen to welcome everyone were quite surprised at the information. In this news, some people who heard the name of the Holy King knew that he was not the emperor's son or changed his clothes to be the person in charge of intelligence and could not expect that the man stepped out from the royal carriage. Yet, the Holy King Chu Tai Kim became angrier than ever because of the attitude of those he considered evil and pagans. It's true that you disrespectful people can still stand after seeing the emperor's edict. Out there, now I have appeared, but you still don't quickly bow your heads and knees down. Why do the people of this religion all become worried and they all look at their leader with countless worries? The fam, and he was dressed in luxurious black robes and stood at the main gate, and the crown prince began to look at him and point. He knew clearly that the person facing him was the leader of the heavenly devil sect. He tried to observe more closely and recognized him. This sect leader is still too young and immature. I can't feel any aura from him. This guy is worse than a normal person. Let alone martial artist Lam Minho became colder as soon as he heard about this. The man who was insulting his leader, the great protector of the Dharma, showed anger behind that mysterious mask. However, he still could not act because he had not received permission from Headmaster Chu Tai Kiem and did not care at all. With those expressions, he only enjoyed pointing them straight at Thien Pham, the cult leader. Don't you quickly kneel down to receive the emperor's orders? Why did his last words make everyone, the fire god users, became angry right now? If the male protagonist decides to attack them, the elders will definitely take action immediately. His face turned gray and also showed an angry expression. Very dissatisfied with that crown prince. All the people chosen to welcome Mi's people right now all radiate their murderous aura. Very terrible. It is a very strong aura, so causing the horses they were leading to become chaotic and difficult to control. The male commander sensed this and began to draw out his sword and point at you guys who dared to radiate a fierce aura to threaten the Holy King. Your Majesty's order, is it true that you are trying to rebel against the demon sect, right? Chu Tai Kiem above became satisfied. It seems like these people are becoming arrogant because the royal palace has treated them with respect from the past. However, the Bai gunmen are still subjects of the Great Alliance and there is no way for them to oppose their own country right now. Van Q's grandfather hastily had to preach. This elder told the leader of the religion to remind his superior that the other person was Chu Tai Kiem and the second son of the current emperor. This guy was originally a person who did not understand the industry well, so he can I show my face, Thien Pham, right now. If I handle it myself, that fat guy will probably die. That's why I ordered the elder to have the right to speak up, and Van Yen stepped forward and bow slightly out of respect for the other person's high position. That holy king felt like a mess of a leader, but he didn't personally show up. So why do you think that's the case? After all, he also showed that he had a bit of dignity and waited to see what the other person's actions would be. As soon as Van Yen reached a certain area, he clasped his fists in both hands. It was an honor to meet His Royal Highness the Holy King of the Great Empire. The guard nearby began shouting how dare he use his fists to salute the saint. Vuong Sao, that old man, quickly kneeled down in front of him. However, right after saying this, the guard became frightened by the sudden energy pressure that poured down on his body as the true energy radiated out from Elder Van's body. At this moment, he could not breathe to the point that he could not even open his mouth. The third elder began to look straight at the Holy King and then uttered a very dangerous voice. We are outside. The leader of the heavenly demon god sect never kneels before anyone. Chu Tai Kiem began to frown and he did not think that Van Yen would mention the peace treaty at this time. Our sect signed an inviolable contract with the Dan Ming Empire. The Dan Ming Empire and the heavenly demon god sect were equal and had nothing to do with each other when the founder of the Dan Ming Empire received help to build the country of our religion and even signed a contract. Quan and martial arts don't know what authority you have to force us to kneel. After hearing those words, that holy king started to become angry at his cowardly subjects. You are teaching the holy king of the great starry empire. As soon as this sentence ended, he also asked his soldiers to immediately rush forward to make the people of the heavenly demon god sect kneel. Several royal guards immediately drew their swords and rushed to Van Yen's place, certain of one thing, that the third elder would never lose to these incompetent martial artists, to one of the other three before the action has shown a dangerous attitude. It seems that you still refuse to cooperate. Those sharp swords were swung out, then a certain aura immediately stopped the impact. The sound of metal rang out and the weapon of they were broken in half. When the male general saw the old man using cane kick to confront him, the angry face in his mind became more worried, and he thought that the opponent was indeed not an ordinary person he had captured. Leader holding and radiating his terrible pressure, I request all of my subordinates to finish this job. If I can't bring him to his knees, I will personally cut off your heads. This is one thing team retreating the dilemma. When they couldn't advance, they couldn't retreat, they couldn't turn around, and they'd die. Going up even if they failed wouldn't harm their lives. So those 3 guards had no choice but to help them. They have already begun to pull out the remaining mirror sticks that are with them. Taking the initiative to attack the 3rd elder to deal with this group is really not too difficult for Van Yen in just a blink of an eye. His eyes defeated each of the guards in turn, which was unfortunate for them because they themselves did not know that they had to confront one of the strongest elders of the divine demon religion. Chu Tai Kiem felt that he couldn't believe his eyes anymore because he was very confident that Cam Bai Vi had practiced royal martial arts, so he wouldn't be harmed. However, the truth was exposed right before his eyes, and he couldn't deny it because so this guy started ordering the rest to rush forward to suppress Van Yen. As soon as he finished saying this sentence, those weak bodies immediately shot towards him before reaching Thi Ma. He thought that everything would go smoothly according to the God Sect, but right now everything has gone far beyond control. The entire Cam Bai Vi has been defeated not only by the hands of the 3rd elder. Fortunately for them, if Thien Pham took the initiative to take action, his body would definitely not be able to heal. Since when did the 6 swords appear, and their presence is also a very taboo thing? Only when the safety of the church is in danger. It was only because of the influence that this happened that Mr. Vuong pounded hard on Cam Bai Vi's chest and glared straight at him, implying that is there anyone else? Let's hurry up and end the situation right now. It's too confusing right now. Therefore, the Southern General reminded all of his subordinates. They are traitors. Everyone should hurry up and protect His Royal Highness. The royal family guards immediately withdrew their weapons and used steel shields to defend themselves. Create a defensive line of massive, heavy shields that immediately appear as if they were a wall of steel. According to the eye, we can see that they are trying to complete many layers of protection. However, the fighters are all very weak in martial arts and can only use their numbers to overwhelm the Thi Ma God Sect. Chu Tai Kiem seemed very excited because what he wanted had happened. If not for this incident, it would have been difficult to use an excuse to create war. Then those sinister thoughts were immediately extinguished when a sudden figure appeared. Suddenly he rushed towards the cold fairy and demon leader who appeared in front of him, and he wanted to ask why this guy had such an attitude. Although it was unclear why the opponent was able to penetrate Cam Bai Vi. And he also quickly backed away, and then threw his head back to fight back. He grabbed Mam with his right arm and pressed a heavy force into Thien Pham's chest. He flattened out a bloody shot everywhere, making viewers frown. Each figure tried to dig out as if it wanted to crush the male lead's heart. However, it was clear that he was wrong because now he didn't know where his fingers were anymore. The pain went straight to his nerves. And as this guy started screaming in pain, the blood flowed even more and his hand to touch the beauties in his harem was no longer there. In the previous episode, Chu Tai Kiem deliberately attacked Thien Pham in a way that was not allowed. No one could have expected that. He felt very happy at that time because he thought he had killed the leader of the Dai Thien Demon God Sect. It was clear that this guy was acting very knave, and one thing was certain, the ending would come. Is very worthy of blood spewing everywhere from right in front of the male lead's chest. However, this is not his blood. It originates from Chu Tai Kiem's arm that was severed before he noticed. That hurts. Emperor Daimid's son began to shrink and hide his right arm, which was immediately removed. This guy continued to roll his eyes angrily at Thien Pham. With his hand remaining, he put all his strength into it. I can't help but want to scratch his delicate face. It's so unlucky that I know how hard this guy is still trying. That effort has helped him balance his disability with his remaining arm. Chu Tai Kiem fell backwards, and he started screaming and rolling around like a piece of wood being pushed down a slope. Thien Pham's hobby is chopping off hands, so he also felt that these things were quite normal, right? The pain is nothing compared to what the male lead did to his own half-brothers. Thien Pham thought that this was nothing at all, and he also grabbed Chu Tai Kiem's fat face tightly. Quickly, the force of the grip was so strong that each finger seemed to want to gouge out both of his eyes. The soldiers in charge of the Daimon Empire were shocked when they saw the celestial demon sect master lift them up with one hand. The only thing Chu Tai Kiem has right now is his big fat body, which is his mouth, and so he is threatening the person who is oppressing him. Do you know what you are doing? This could make you guys angry. If you become an enemy of the royal family, then for a crown prince with a high position in a large imperial house, The male lead cannot choose to bow down to him. He also feels that the male lead, if he kept this guy near him any longer, he would definitely lose his life, so he threw that trash body straight back to his subordinates, the royal guards. Jara right now is trying to hold the shield firmly, to defend against the very door of the Thema God sect. Those who are not paying attention to their duties are trying to get out before the crown prince bumps into them. Chu Tai Kim's body was thrown right in front of the main gate of the Dathen Demon God sect, and he could not stand up because he had lost his arms at this moment of being able to face the name representing the great god. His empire was the elders, his eyes became afraid, and he felt the aura in the most important people of the heavenly demon god sect. Although he had become worried, his mouth was this guy still can't wait to go anywhere. You can't be safe when you touch Bon Vuong. Hearing these two words Bon Vuong, Thin Pham didn't take those words into his eyes. He gave a strange smile, and showing his eyes directed straight at Chu Tai Kim, he thought that that name would have no effect here at all. If this crown prince shows his authority in another way, it would be better than showing off his authority. Truong Than, they paid the price with his own hands. Time temporarily moved back to 3 days ago. Right now, Uncle Tai Kim and all his subordinates are on the way to deliver Emperor Damedzigik to Thema, then Sect. There are many things, but this crown prince still couldn't find out, and so he asked his subordinates for information. The voice in the carriage asked where the Namtown Tai was, and a servant said yes, Namtown Lord. The king of Namquan is currently right next to his highness. At that time, Chu Tai Kim was quite curious about this fertile land and wanted to know who was temporarily in charge. Of course, the people living in Daimin at that time, they are all children of the empire, and he has no difficulty understanding the people living on his father's land. But General Nam still only tries to say that everyone is a subject of the great empire. And His Majesty the Emperor's angry voice from inside the carriage continued to come out from there. Why do these martial arts bastards dare to disrespect the great empire like that? They should have come to the capital themselves and Baotao to receive the royal destiny. Why did the king personally come to him like this? Chu Tai Kim knew that when the Taida founded the country, he tried to rely on many alliances, including the Thema then Sect, so therefore the military oath of non-commitment was also created from that time. He knew that the irreversible mutual contract between mandarins and martial artists was something that could not be abolished, but there was no need to establish this tradition. Another thing happened about 180 years ago when the founder of the great empire and the leaders of the martial arts of the 3 generations met and signed this contract regarding the nation of martial arts people who possessed extraordinary strength. These are said to be dangerous existences. There was a time when the royal dynasty was in conflict with the martial arts, but Daimen's ancestors believed that this was a waste of national power, so they signed a non-aggression pact. This king absolutely did not. I'm not satisfied with the devil cults at all. Even the emperor is just a son of heaven, yet they dare to praise their cult leader as the sky. How can they be so different from the righteous cults? Right, Naman General at that time knew that the crown prince practiced Taoist martial arts, so he had great affection for the righteous sect and overlooked the demonic sect. It was obvious that according to my knowledge, the evil sect and the demonic sect both had their own ambitions. When I heard these words, he started screaming his ambition. How ridiculous is that? Shouldn't we solve it? They go in this martial arts world. Only the righteous faction is the subject of the great empire. After saying those impolite words, the courtier Kiem continued to ask and urge him. This subordinate has a body shape that looks quite similar to that guy, and is also just a low-level civil servant of the great empire, according to information. But I know that the current patriarch has expelled the former patriarch to be promoted to the position of patriarch. After hearing those confidential words, Chu Tai Kim seemed very satisfied. He was even more interested in seeing his subordinates believe that the new sect leader is a person who has no talent at all. If His Highness takes this opportunity to capture them, he will gain His Majesty's trust. This is a rare opportunity. Then these events happened. It all comes from Duck Ann's words, and in just a moment the one who will suffer from it all is the royal court Kim Naman. The general knows that, and in reality, Yish wants to create the majesty of the royal family, but everything was destroyed by the very name of that low-level Quan Van who had a sword in his hand. Right now, the general only thought that the leader of the heavenly devil was not at all afraid of the power of the royal family. Otherwise, if he could protect the crown prince, It would be inevitable that when he returned, he would be beheaded, so he shouted loudly to remind all his subordinates to make sure Thien Pham heard his comments. Following the general's orders, dozens of Kambai rushed to the position where he was standing. Dozens of swords pointed straight in that direction. However, the male protagonist took a step and flew into the air. The lowly soldiers began to widen their eyes in horror. I was surprised because I didn't see the other person anywhere. Right behind them, a guy had already discovered that Thien Pham was there and he shouted loudly that he was using a permutation. Just like that, the male lead walked forward slowly, back to where the other general was commanding his troops. Another one continued to remind his comrades behind him and tried to create a siege to stop the celestial demon cult leader. But this group will definitely no longer have a chance. That again, right at this moment, all three of the most powerful guardians appeared because they felt that the patriarch's safety had been affected. Only the Dream Master did not pay much attention because he understood his disciples well. My leader has very outstanding abilities and describes the legal guardian Manhwa as a hot-tempered person, and it is clear that he does not like to make fun of the Tom Gum dynasty. The sharp sword slashes horizontally. From then on, this person's voice rang out threateningly. If you step across this line, be prepared to give me an arm. All of Camp Mai V's soldiers cannot move at this time because they have been invaded by the pressure of the left side of Hofat Protector. The situation right now is that all the people of the great demon god sect have drawn out their weapons and surrounded all the people from the Naman royal palace. Right now, Naman is standing very calmly in front of you, has the right to command the army. However, the strange thing is that he did not look at the fat crown prince one more time and did not show any remorse. Seeing that huge pressure, the Nam general continuously raised his voice to threaten him, bullying him and threatening him. If he deliberately took another step forward, the Thien Ma God sect will definitely become the enemy of the Great Alliance. Suddenly Thien Pham bent down a bit and clasped his hands together, facing a place further away. As soon as the male general saw that scene, he became surprised and extremely confused that the helmet and armor were very suitable for that day. This is exactly what Thien Pham was saying at the center to someone. Being protected very carefully, he became startled and realized that Chu Tai Kim was the body double. In reality, this man Antoine was actually the crown prince. Indeed, this was a very cumbersome scene. Coming from the Daemin Empire in the previous part, Thien Pham cut off both of the servants' hands of His Highness the Crown Prince of the Daemin Empire, not only creating such an extremely tense incident, but he also discovered Zhu Tai hiding inside the palace guards. Now focus on watching to see what will happen to the leader of the Daithien demon god sect. The guards, but the leader according to the description of his subordinates is a demon. When did he realize it? Could it be that from the beginning he discovered and pretended to cooperate with us? Or why did the male general pull out his sword and move forward to protect the crown prince? That bastard is so loud. The military officer is incompetent, but he dares to attack the court officials and threatens His Highness. Why do you arrest him? At first, Master Suman laughed out loud and thought that the people of the Great Alliance were the first to find trouble. As I said, it was a bait for the Crown Prince who captured all of this. Most of them came out of the city walls to welcome them and show the utmost respect to the court, but they kept urging the demon god's subjects to kneel. Serve him right, but if hidden, if you submit to the martial force and rely on the contract that cannot be violated, then what is the authority of the royal family? As the male leader of the Taita Palace, you must definitely stop it. Even so, you are not enough. In fact, no matter where he was, Chu Tai Kian was still an arbitrary action. The emperor's son, and it was clear that this person's power would not be changed in response to the general's denials. Thien Pham had to sigh. I wanted to ask His Highness the Holy King of our religion. The impersonator of the sect leader will be dealt with immediately, but in the royal family, how will the impersonator of the prince be dealt with? The Crown Prince Kiem looked confused, and certainly would not be able to refute it. Compared to the court will severely punish those who dare to impersonate His Highness the Crown Prince. Whether he is the leader of the sect or not, the male lead will never kneel before someone else. I tell your Highness, knowing that without an inviolable contract, that guy would no longer be alive. After hearing those words, Chu Tai Kiem understood that in the royal family or in a demonic religion, the regulations would be very strict. One thing was clear in his mind. The leader of the heavenly demon god sect was not only strong in martial arts, but also had good willpower. The Nam general saw the look on the Saint King's face and also began to point his sword to relieve the siege. Help in short, your current actions are disrespectful to the royal family. Having said that, he also asked the other party to stay away from the sight of His Highness the Holy King. If compared in terms of rank, it is clear that both are equal, so this is really unreasonable. Perhaps that general also doesn't know about some things in the Thema God sect. If there is someone who dares to endanger the life of the patriarch, then the great Dharma protector himself will have to appear without having to listen to anyone's orders. The Mala sword will rush forward and Fang will give the great Ms. general a blow. This martial artist has started to show off his whole face and slap my hand so easily. What the hell is so powerful? This general thought that no one would be able to fight him except him. When he was the 5 great masters of martial arts, his understanding was too weak, and he was very curious behind the mask. No matter what background this person had. One more thing was that being beaten like this was very embarrassing for the other soldiers. So the southern general took the initiative to scream and rushed forward in response, stabbing the sword in his hand very hard forward, but the great protector was very easy to dodge. Then this person continued to wriggle behind, and then pointed many acupuncture points on the general's body in a moment. It was not really called acupressure points, but rather skin techniques. So the blood on his body began to shoot out clearly. Mala Kim was holding back because this person at least had a title at the court with a little martial arts learned from his Nam Kum family, when the general felt the pain and kicked back in response. How could the Dharma protector transform? With just one sweep of the turret, General Nam lost his balance and fell down. The difference in strength was obvious. There was no need to waste time fighting. If Mala's sword alone could do this, at least the people of the court would have understood what the patriarch's power was. Instead of frowning in shame, the sword in the general's hand was taken away from him. Using divine power, he pulled this weapon towards him. Then he grasped it tightly and pointed it straight at the person lying on the ground. The male general suddenly did not dare to do anything, but his hands were motionless, holding them out like his head. Even though he wanted to stand up, he couldn't do it anymore. A voice like thunder rang out, causing even the others to hear it and scream with a sword to warn them not to ever point their sword at him. Our patriarch's jade body and the royal guards really wanted to help but couldn't because they knew that the person in front was very strong. His Royal Highness the King had not made any move but only had millions of thoughts in his mind. We have already suppressed the Namchan Palace, so if this continues, they will threaten this king. In any case, we cannot defeat them in terms of force, but we cannot be subdued by them either. The only thing that Chu Tai Kiem has now that is the same as Chu Tai Kiem is the mouth of you people who dare to suppress this king's guard, Namchan Fu Tai, and threaten Kam Bayavi. Are you not afraid of hundreds? Naman was quite surprised because he thought that this display of strength would make the Holy King afraid, but that was not the case. Ju Tai Kiem asserted in his mind that no matter how outstanding a martial artist is, he can't handle hundreds of thousands of arrows. So he told himself in his heart that he needed to be stronger in order to be able to do that, and then his mouth were bold enough to look straight into his face. Thien Pham, seems like you still don't know that if you just touch a hair of this king, the demonic religion will completely disappear. Actually, this statement is a bit excessive, and the people of the Thien demonic god sect are frowning in the direction of His Highness the Holy King. Affecting the sect's leader is one thing, but affecting the safety and survival of the sect is truly ruinous. The male protagonist's face now showed he looked very disappointed and thought that after saying these words, the demon cultists would be scared. But Chu Tai Kiem saw that they did not have any wavering at all. If I said he was brave, it would be a bit too much. I should call it clever because this is the first time I have met an official, so I have a little concern, but he has already disappointed me. From the beginning, if I use force and the number of soldiers to threaten the male lead is a really stupid thing. Even if there are hundreds or thousands of people, it doesn't mean anything to the hero. The male lead raised his left hand and started using divine power on the weapons in the hands of those soldiers. In an instant, all of them flew up above the central stage, and everyone tried to reach for them, but could not reach those sharp sword tips at the same time. Shooting strongly towards the soldiers, the speed is very fast, and after reaching a certain range, it immediately stops. This is a scene worth seeing if it is made into a movie. and who everyone knows that the Ngu sword has just been deployed by the leader. The Nam general is a person who is very well trained in martial arts, and he understands what this is all about. If he can freely control so many swords, then the leader of the demon sect is truly no longer a human being. Not only him, but even the great Dharma protector was equally surprised because in just 1 month, how could the patriarch break through the realm? But the atmosphere right now is becoming so cold that it makes him angry. Goosebumps and the people of this religion all knelt down and shouted the words "Heavenly Demon is coming." They kept repeating those words over and over. Then Thien Pham also took the initiative to move towards the Holy King. His Highness Chu Tai Kiem now was really scared and couldn't speak anymore. His mouth was constantly whispering incomprehensible and inconvenient sentences. Backing away like that, this person couldn't control himself and fell. If diving to the ground can be used with weapons, then surely the male protagonist can do it with humans. He continues to use divine power and lifts the opponent up to the middle stage even though this person continuously screams "Namanat." I asked if your highness knew why there was a non-saying martial military contract. That's because the divine demon sect is not afraid of the hundreds of thousands of royal armies. It seems like your highness, is there something wrong with the contract that has existed for hundreds of years? Actually, it's more accurate to say that the king is afraid of the power of the Thien Ma God sect, so he has maintained it until now. In the next episode, the male protagonist made it clear to Chu Tai Kiem that the unrelenting military contract was not necessarily because the Thien Ma God sect was afraid of hundreds of thousands of royal armies. He bluntly told the emperor's son that the reason was that contract exists until now because the emperor is afraid of the power of the heavenly demon God sect. Chu Tai Kiem shouted angrily and thought that the other party was insulting Day to Chu Guan Chuom of the Dai Empire right away. While he was about to say those words, Thien Pham's divine power lifted this person into the air. The army will only act when there is an order from the king, right? But if that king does not exist, then what would it be like? If you want to know, just wait until I and the experts break into the palace at midnight, then your highness will understand. Chu Tai Kiem was seriously shocked after that. He recognized the male lead or the martial arts masters of the sect can easily penetrate through the defense of the imperial guard. When the emperor and his highness the crown prince or the holy king no longer exist, the 100,000 army of the Dai Empire will obey. Who is this? This was the first time in the holy king's life that he felt fear of death. Thien Pham's cold eyes and words proved that he was not lying. He implied that he could do it at any time if he wanted to. However, he regained his dangerous attitude and smiled happily. Now, His Highness knows the reason why he has the Quan Vu Non sensation contract. Chu Tai Kiem nodded. Lying, and this person's body suddenly he was lowered to the ground in a very scared appearance because sweat had drenched the sharp armor. Not only that, but gasped out, making viewers think that Dai is really it's so embarrassing. Actually, no one thought that with his sky-high title, His Highness the Holy King could bow down to the leader of the Dai Thien Demon God sect. To be more precise, what the male lead said was also just right. Only partly, people speculate that inside the palace, there is a kind of power that is hidden very carefully, and that power is always by his side to protect the king if he is not a strong person. Thai Pham's skills are like that of the male lead, so he absolutely cannot do that. However, he doesn't need to say this because they probably don't know yet, and there's no need to discuss it further right away. Thien Pham lowered his hand and all of Cam Bai V's weapons fell. Law fell to the ground. Okay, if your highness has the heart to bring the emperor, I will take a look to see something that they is right away. With those words, the male protagonist raised his hand and forcefully pulled the holy decree back to his place. Maybe they didn't need to be surprised anymore because they had already seen too many miracles when they had just arrived at the Thien Ma Divine Sect and were planning to do so. He opened the Emperor's order and suddenly something happened that made Thien Pham pay attention. He heard a painful scream from the guy pretending to be His Highness the Holy King. From far away, his fat body began to shake. Screaming and unable to stand, blood began to flow from his eyes, nose and mouth, making the elders standing nearby appear very surprised. Before that, you still speak loudly even though your hands were gone. Don't come near those bastards. I'm the official of the court. In fact, no matter how high the title is, it will never be meaningful to those who were worshipping holy fire like the Dai Thien Ma God sect at that time. The fat man thought that if he continued to deal with it like this, he would definitely not be able to save his life from the Thema crowd. In the divine sect, there was a person who stepped out. This was the leader of the sword sect. However, he tore off one of his sleeves to tie it to the 2 bleeding wounds of lust. He really wanted to tear him apart. You have a lot of family, but for now, I still let you keep this life. After saying that, the sect leader immediately sealed the acupuncture points so that this guy can no longer use his internal power. First, I need to keep this life. No matter how he was tortured, it was still better than dying with those thoughts in his head, or in other words, he felt his body becoming very cold following those thoughts. This guy felt extreme pain as if someone was penetrating his inner chamber. To be more precise, it was like being stabbed by hundreds of swords and blades. The other elders felt curious. I was curious, so I went over to take a look. Then suddenly he vomited a puddle of blood. Not only did it stop there, but from that puddle of blood, a lot of unpleasant odors were emitted. Owner Macnian quickly warned everyone. People around you should step back because that fat guy's body is emitting sexual gas. He feels very uncomfortable and he thinks that this can't happen to him or it's because of the guy he met. Before that, to be honest, if we look at the whole picture, perhaps the people of Dammen think that this trick was created by the demon sect and the leader of the Home Kim sect also just had good intentions to control it. The blood only helped save his life. Right now, toxic gas was emanating from this person's body like water was evaporating. The incident continued because the male lead was preparing to watch the Emperor's mention. And he didn't have time to know what was written inside to check the situation. Perhaps the male lead himself would have to directly take action. His face had become very distorted and smoke was coming out of his body. If as a more understood description, it was like a bomb. So the elders outside felt it was quite dangerous, and everyone warned the patriarch not to do so. If he ignores those warnings, the male protagonist would thanks to Nano to analyze and understand that the heart is still beating but the speed is slowing down, and it seems like he is about to stop breathing. Surely this has some hidden meaning, so the patriarch himself also really wants to know, so there was no other way but to treat this talkative and arrogant guy. Immediately, that strong hand touched his chest and caused the poisonous gas to spread everywhere. Many elders were trying to stop it, but they understood that the toxic gas had been purified, so our leader had broken through to a new realm. Why didn't fam pay attention to those comments? The poison had spread to the whole body, so I couldn't. Dispelling it like this, everything will be in vain. Even thinking about this, he looked back implicitly and asked the reason. Why did the god use the acupuncture point suppression technique to make that guy unable to use his power? After hearing that, the male protagonist continued to frown like that, meaning that the poison will always be spread even if the poisoned person does not use his internal strength. He understood that if he did it to this extent, it would definitely I just want to prevent top secret information from leaking out. In any case, there is no way to save him, so the male lead will have to transmit the internal technique and Mingmon acupuncture points to see where that flow of energy is coming from. In fact, as soon as he looked at the situation, the sect master had to widen his eyes in surprise. Because this is fat minus gone. This is a martial art originating from the Shaolin temple of the Rajas sect. That's why he became so fat. So because he is methodically trained, most people do not like to learn this martial art because it gains weight very quickly, but in fact it helps the learner accumulate a huge amount of internal space. It is clear that this guy is being a spy for the political sect is likely the reason. Considering the origin of this magic, why did they want the royal palace to oppose the Theme Demon God sect? The sect leader could not explain it himself, and he continued to ask Nano to prepare a dozen MRAs that had completed the scanning of the subject and were able to scan the designated male protagonist to proactively touch his head to let Nano scan and see everything inside. Something small was squirming inside its head. Its movements were slowing down as if it was dying with the host. This was quite similar to what Thien Pham had previously done to the master of Dao Qian, who was still a monster. The poisonous worm will destroy Hai Huok on its own as soon as someone coerces or is suppressed. As time goes on, the guy's face turns upside down, and the centipede's body seems to swell bigger, and the back of the fat man's neck begins to emerge. Blood, and as if he was about to not be able to hold on any longer, he suddenly shot blood everywhere, and the guy pretending to be the Holy King didn't have time to leave behind a blanket. Actually, there are too many hidden secrets and it's making everything become complicated. Even more confusing than this is something that cannot be calculated from the people of the Great Alliance. Perhaps no one will understand better than Thien Pham right now except those who follow them into the Central Plains. Then perhaps it's all a big question mark. All of the events that just happened are probably related to the mysterious sect called Extreme Knife Luck Vo Man. In the previous episode, Thien Pham discovered the poor situation. Duc An's complaints, his symptoms and signs are exactly the same as the master of the sword and sword sect, Lai Bok. So to be more precise, all of them were implanted with ancient poison, and the biggest reason is the difficulty of Extreme Knife 6 martial arts. I can't imagine how influential this group is when I'm also curious about the Royal Order and whether it's related or not. There's no need to hesitate any longer. The leader of the Great Thien Demon God sect immediately opened it to see when the scroll opened all the royal guards and 2,000 soldiers knelt down and bowed their heads, but Thien Pham and his men still stood proudly. The male general, who was kneeling with his injured leg, he gritted his teeth but he couldn't say anything. What a bunch of bastards who saw the emperor's fate but still refused to kneel down. Why was the content roughly as follows? Please respectfully invite your heroes to come. Signed a contract with the newly crowned Crown Prince Pham. Read the scroll. Unlike the arrogance of the Crown Prince Kim, the scroll was written very politely, treating worship as equal. It was like a letter, more than just an order. What the male lead was a bit confused about was that the date of the meeting would be scheduled during the Don Go festival. It seemed that this royal order was not only sent to the Dai Thien Demon God sect alone, the male main character expressed. He was more worried and he needed to investigate carefully to see if he should go or not. Chu Tai Kim was performing the ceremony when he also saw the serious face of the patriarch. So he was very worried after Thien Pham directly asked the prince if he was okay. Know the contents inside. Otherwise, this person only has a passing knowledge of the emperor's private secrets. It is not something that even the power of the royal family can unlock. If that is the case, then does your highness know who received the gift? This too. Chu Tai Kim hesitated for a second and then answered because anyway, Thien Pham would soon know that this was all delivered to the leaders of the forces in martial arts. But he frowned because this was meant to be the royal palace will have leaders from all three forces arrive on the same day, which is not an easy thing to happen in the history of martial arts. The number of times the three great forces have gathered so far can only be counted on the fingers of one hand. 5 times, 3 out of 5 times they met. War broke out. Thien Pham is worried because the extreme Dao Luck Vo Man wants to cause chaos for the three great forces because of war. This is a quite clear plan, and it was further confirmed by Chu Tai Kim when he said that in addition to the evil sect and the demon sect, there was still another force. The prince was a bit hesitant and then said the name Extreme Dao Luck Vo Man is the last force was invited at the same time to the ancient poison breeding area at the general headquarters of the Extreme Dao Luck Vo Man in Hong Sun Hangzhou City. Many screams rang out throughout the room and a jar filled with ancient poison was opened and on the lid of the box were the words Grand Plan Third. This spy on the shamanic cult did not need to be killed because the spy would have died from the poison as soon as he was affected by any potential threat. At some point, he started muttering to himself, although it's a pity to lose the spy who worked so hard to wait for a long time, but luckily we took action against that spy first. The second grand plan has recently failed. If it effectively the cult would fall into their hands. At least he did it so that the centipede wouldn't leave any trace, and there was no way to find out who was behind it. The bases of the factions are located throughout the martial arts world. So each faction from the royal palace arrives at different times within 2 weeks and is transferred to the general headquarters of the martial arts faction in the district. Luoyangsheng in Henan was a very beautiful scene with millions of women dancing in martial arts. Master Lai Mok regarded Crown Prince Du. His Royal Highness Chu Tai Lun was very pleased with the hospitality from a generation. With such a huge martial force, inside there are also heads of other families, more specifically 17,000 masters, but not all of them are here at the same time outside the hall where the one beauty banquet is held. The woman was talking to one of the Taoists dressed in Ho Sun Man's clothes. We still haven't found all the spies. I'm not sure. Is it okay for the party to continue for 3 days like this, sir? Letter is huge. I understand the elder's concern, but it's better to leave the best impression for the future emperor. These two people are the military advisors of the Vo Lam Chin sect. After returning from the demon sect, they have been working hard for the past few months to find the spies hiding their power. Since when did they arrange so many spies among us? This is the most mysterious thing they cannot understand because the 6 martial arts poles are only recently appeared. It is possible that this enemy has existed for a long time, and the head of Hosun continued the story because he was very concerned about something that needed to be explained, perhaps the contract. Kwanvo Bat Sanzing. This time it is related to extreme Dao Luck martial arts or something. Before the trap, we can clearly see the intention like this. Will the demonic sect and the evil sect alliance fall for the bait? The advisors nodded at his words. In fact, this is what all martial arts leaders have predicted in advance. There is no way they will not be wary of a newly established force when this event traditionally includes only good and evil. The demon sect's strategist did not know what kind of evil sect it was, but she was quite sure that the demon sect would come to the palace. After hearing about Thien Pham, he also expressed admiration that he did not expect him to be able to grasp the government of the demon sect after just one day. Such a short time. What an extraordinary person, but also very scary. Before the male lead took power, he was cleared of poisoning during the meeting between the righteous sect and the demonic sect. If we were in his position, I would try to use the trap against us, and I'm sure the current leader is thinking something that I can't predict. The teacher will not miss a very good opportunity to clearly see the mysterious force of extreme Dao Luck Vumon. It is not clear what kind of trap it is or how, but the fact that extreme Dao Luck Vumon appears is something no one knows. I wanted to skip it, and suddenly the story stopped because of the presence of Lin Bat Tu, the first son of the Mem Master Vo Lam Min. This person is the future fiancé of Hosun's military strategist, Elder Hosun, who was quite surprised, because he couldn't feel the aura. He must have made progress in martial arts. Not only that, Lin Bat Tu is also the future of Vo Lam Chin sect. In the future, he will most likely become a worthy opponent. With Thien Pham Trang, if you want to know more, please like and follow Baby Koi a lot. Finally, we will meet the person that the Elder and I have appreciated so much. Lai family's military advisors became surprised when he first talked about Thien Pham. He didn't seem very interested, but now he really cares that he will be the final obstacle for me to become Thien Pham in the world. This generation is talking and laughing at the same time, but it seems that he is seriously thinking about the leader of the Dai Thien Demon God sect. 7 days have passed since the Imperial Palace's special agent was sent to the Thien Demon God sect. Because Vuong Chu Tai Kiem was so scared, he wanted to quickly end everything and retreat. But with Thien Pham's advice, he had no choice but to stay here for a while longer and stay at the Holy King's demon sect. The reception was quite warm, different from what Chu Tai Kiem thought. At first, he could not adapt to the attitude of this sect, but gradually, when he was warmly welcomed, the Holy King became less tense and more comfortable. After eating and drinking and returning to his room, this person also had lingering thoughts in his mind. The atmosphere was not bad. I heard that except for the political faction, the other two forces sent representatives. Sign a contract to save face. If this time the demon cult leader attends, the Emperor's authority will be revealed from this trip. It might even give Zhu Taikiem the opportunity to receive recognition for his talent and have the hope of becoming Crown Prince. It is said that the Crown Prince will be chosen for this event, so the Holy King must do whatever it takes. What could be thinking about this, when from outside there was a knock on the door, and it was General Nam asking for permission. It was already late at this point, but perhaps there was something important. The Holy King spoke again with joyful words this time. If everything is okay, then the sect leader will participate in the contract signing ceremony, right? The Nam general began to glance around and release his inner strength. He did so to avoid the demon sex people from hearing the information. Secret information is about to speak. I'm sorry, Your Highness, I need to put a barrier around the room. We can speak freely. Then Chu Tai-Kiem begins to speak his thoughts freely, but there is one thing they didn't know was that a powerful expert was eavesdropping. They were talking on the ceiling. The person Nam General couldn't sense was none other than the elder who had changed clothes at the same time. At the inner city medical hall of the Ma God sect, the divine doctor and Ma Mai are very attentively observing Thien Lu Tuyen's medical condition. The man with a bulging head and pale face lying on the bed is the supreme patriarch and above. An old woman doing acupuncture on her bald head was the divine physician. Cam Lo Tuma was very surprised that the divine physician had researched both acupuncture and herbs to heal Patriarch Tai Thuong's wounded heart, and that shocked all the doctors in the room. An hour had passed and she didn't look tired. Maybe I should practice more external exercises. Just thinking about it, Mrs. Cam called. My fellow left me to ask him to take out the needle in an hour or so. Maybe I need to rest a bit, and then I'll be back in order. As soon as I opened the door and walked out, I met Thien Pham, and my two Dharma protectors came. Just by looking at it, it was enough to understand that the male lead was asking about the condition of his father. The Hungarian vein had been damaged for quite a long time, but anyway, the dangerous stage had now passed after all. When people heard the words from the god of medicine saying that in about half a month the patient would wake up, everyone looked happy. This is definitely great news. Lady Cam has done what Nano, even with her vast knowledge of medicine, cannot do it either. But perhaps this is natural, because of the injury. Since martial arts still has many mysteries that need to be explained in the future, the medicine man seems to be giving up his strength. So the leader reminded him, she should go back to her room to rest. It's true that during her trip to the Central Plains not long ago, Thien Pham Thu achieved the first quite important results. It can be said that he has conquered the divine will into his hands, something that Tan Thien, the guild, couldn't even do it. After Cam Baba's shadow disappeared, the elder immediately appeared, still acting respectfully and quite solemnly, but the male lead didn't bother with those details and understood the fever of the patriarch, so this elder asked permission to get straight to the point. It was not clear what he had found out, but Thien Pham's expression became very interested.